Jacqueline Brennan, for those of you who may not know me. And to start us off, I'm going to ask you all a question, and I need you guys to be honest, and I need you guys to participate. So by raise of hands, who here has stereotyped somebody once before? Take a look around. It's safe to say that it's human nature for us to label people based on their looks or how they act, regardless if it's a right or wrong assumption. So to clear it out of the way, what is a stereotype to you guys in your own words? Someone give me a definition.
Culture.
Color.
Yeah, those are all very good responses. I got a definition by the Conflict Research Consortium, which states that it's an assumption that people make about the characteristics of all members of a group based on an image about what people in that group are like. Basically, if you guys don't understand, it means what you guys just said. The major conflict that we see today, especially in the high school world, is the feeling that we get what it feels like to be stereotyped, such as that feeling of being unaccepted or unwanted by the world. If you think about it, if we allow our minds to stereotype, that must mean that it's possible for us to avoid stereotyping as well. Now that we understand what a stereotype is, there are many ways that we can stereotype people in general. We can label people by their identity, which means if you look around the room, you can easily place somebody in a category by what they look like. We can place people in stereotypes such as by their gender, by their ethnicity, or their race, or their religion, or their age. For example, I'm going to ask you guys to do something very reckless. Look at your neighbor and place him or her in a category according to his or her appearance. What category would they be in? Another way we can label people is through mannerisms and characteristics, basically by the way he or she acts. A girl or boy can play a sport well and be considered a jock. A girl or boy can get good grades and be considered a nerd. And as a result, when we stereotype people, we assume people to have the same characteristics as their category. And when we allow our minds to generalize people, we basically think that people in that group all act the exact same way. For example, we can honestly admit that everybody in the world somewhat thinks of African Americans as very athletic people. Like if you look at the NFL or the NBA and you look at the majority of people that play it, yes, they are African American, some of them are. However, that does not make African Americans all athletic. The stereotypes will be endless though, such as good and bad stereotypes do exist. However, no matter what kind of stereotype it is, there will come effects with it. Negative stereotypes are probably the most common and affect people the most. A Stanford professor, Claude Steele, states that simply knowing that there is a negative stereotype against the stereotype can lead to individuals to actually doing more poorly on a task than what they otherwise would do. In the high school world, we see some of the most common stereotypes are emos, band geeks, skaters, cheerleaders, nerds, preps, potheads. So I'm going to ask you guys something, and keep it in mind for the future. Recall the last time you were negatively stereotyped by somebody. How did that make you feel? A lot of people can understand what I mean when I say it feels good to be accepted by people, and it's human nature for us to want to be liked for who we truly are. Like, I personally understand what it feels like to be negatively stereotyped by a wrong assumption, and that makes me angry. And when you negatively get categorized by people, it lowers our self-esteem and our performance because people expect us to do bad. Now, positive stereotypes do exist. Some stereotypes can be turned into a good thing, such as being weird, or being crazy, or being nerdy, or being a surfer. They're not as common, but depending on the person, it can be turned into a good thing because that person believes it's factual or it's true. Now, positive stereotypes are not recommended because it comes with effects similarly to negative stereotypes, such as ignorance or cockiness. And now that we understand the effects of stereotyping, it also comes with that saying that elders say today, think before you speak, and take a look at the bigger picture. Now, questions to ask yourself before you stereotype people are, 1, how would stereotyping make that person feel? 2, would stereotyping benefit me or the victim? And 3, how would I feel if it were me? Now, if you weigh out stereotyping, the pros and cons are not even at all. Cons are probably weighed out the most, such as stereotyping only sets up cliques in our environment in the high school world, and it segregates people based on assumptions that probably are not true. So to avoid stereotyping, we must take our eyes off of what's on the outside and look on the inside on what the person truly is. Now we understand now that it's human nature to walk by somebody and immediately place them in a category. Together we looked at the existence of positive and negative stereotypes that have various effects on people depending on the person. We now understand that everyone will react differently to stereotyping, and we need to place ourselves in their situation to fully understand what they're going through. And to end my speech on this note, we've seen a lot of us who stereotyped once before, but we've discovered a power and an ability within us to change our own labeling minds.